And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hi there, I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska aviation weather outlook on this Friday, September 20th, 2024. And this outlook will be for the weekend for both Saturday and Sunday. As of this Friday late morning, though, we are watching an area of low pressure that'll pull up into the lower central Gulf region and then slowly head northeastward and dissipate by Saturday night just off of the western portion of the Panhandle coastline. And this system is bringing some wind and rain to the Panhandle this Friday that will linger into Saturday, but as I say, it will be diminishing here through the course of the weekend. The next couple of weather systems of substance, we have a trough in the mid-levels of the atmosphere digging southeastward. It's going to create accumulating snows. We have winter storm warnings for the central Brooks Range, including Adigan and Anatuvik passes, where as much as 6 to 12 inches of wet snow could fall now through Sunday morning. So this area will see IFR conditions, low ceilings, and visibility as a result of that area of snow that has developed and will increase, especially for this Friday night on and off into Sunday morning. Then out to the west, IFR conditions along and just north of the central western Aleutians. There's going to be a low later this weekend passing just south of the Aleutian chain and then riding up on the south side of the Alaska Peninsula and then south and east of Kodiak Island early next week before it pulls back up to along the Kenai coastline on Tuesday. And that system will have plenty of wind and precipitation associated with it. Now going into Saturday afternoon, we have some IFR conditions along the inner coastal mountains there, British Columbia. MVFR prevalent throughout the Panhandle, still some areas of rain or rain showers lingering. Breezy conditions, but not as windy as today or last night. Now back up here up across the eastern Arctic coast into the eastern part of the Brooks Range, still IFR conditions for Saturday afternoon, and then you can see that hint with low pressure riding along, and just south of the central Aleutians we have along the frontal system there, IFR conditions, and that system is somewhat deep. It'll get down into the 965-ish, 66 millibars. And Sunday morning we find IFR conditions, eastern Aleutians and along and just south there, the tip of the Alaska Peninsula. As we look east Sunday morning, IFR conditions like Chilkoot and White, again, along the intercoastal mountains of British Columbia and the far northern and eastern parts of the Panhandle. IFR conditions extending on middle upper Yukon Valley, even the Tanana and White Mountains along the Alcan border, and then continuing along the Brooks Range and just north of that, up in areas of the North Slope and up toward Kaktovik. We expect IFR conditions with lower ceilings visibility, and again, those heavier accumulating snows there around Anatuvik and Adigan passes. Sunday afternoon, we still find IFR conditions lingering along the eastern half of the North Slope Brooks Range spine and then along the Arctic coast. We have low pressure that'll be coming up along and just south of the Alaska Peninsula with IFR conditions with the frontal system associated ahead of that from Kodiak Island down into the lower end of the Alaska Peninsula, IFR conditions, and then widespread MVFR conditions along much of the Gulf Coast and into the Panhandle. Still prevalent for a change, VFR conditions expected much of this weekend as of this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, continuing along areas of the west and southwest coastline as well as into the interior with that offshore flow. The thing is, this low that's going to be coming up early in the week up into the Gulf, that's going to pull down some colder air across the west side of the state. So it's definitely going to feel chillier here in the week ahead in those areas. So starting out with pass conditions, as I mentioned, IFR conditions, Anatuvik Pass on up into the North Slope, MVFR as you fly south of there. There's a winter storm warning with as much as 6 to 12 inches of snow expected from this Friday into early Sunday morning. Adigan Pass, same thing, snow, fog, lower ceilings visibility. IFR conditions there expected Saturday. Lake Clark and Merrill down the west arm of the Alaska Range, VFR. Beautiful weather across areas of south central into the southwest and interior here for the early weekend, Friday and Saturday. Rainy MVFR conditions becoming VFR. Windy pass generally should hold on to MVFR conditions for Saturday, with VFR conditions further southwest down there through the Susitna Valley. And then Isabel Pass will generally be MVFR conditions throughout the day Saturday, with IFR conditions in the morning, especially along and north of the north entrance. Mentasta Pass, IFR conditions becoming MVFR. And then Tanita Pass will see MVFR conditions in the morning, giving way to VFR conditions for midday and afternoon. And then Portage Pass will hold on to VFR conditions throughout the day Saturday. And in the north end of the Panhandle, because of the current system working through there, IFR Saturday morning, giving way to MVFR conditions. And looking at the freezing levels at the surface, we find the surface freezing line all the way down into areas of the Alaska Range, Talkeetna Mountains, down toward the northern Chugach and on up into the Wrangell-St. Elias Mountains. Freezing levels aloft are below 2,000 feet across much of the northern western mainland Saturday morning. As we go south and east, we find with the remnants of this low that'll be sitting out here in the northeastern Gulf, freezing levels bump up across the Panhandle, rising 6,000 feet in the north to near 10,000 feet there toward Heidelberg and Craig, and then back off to the west. A little bit of a bump around and above 6,000 feet in through the central Aleutians. Now, with the areas of precipitation anticipated Saturday, we have that mid and upper trough that's digging into the central eastern Brooks Range. That's responsible for the area of snow, especially in the higher elevations. So you will encounter moderate icing there, especially once you get at Cloud Basin higher, above 1,000 feet. And then in the northern Panhandle, potential for some moderate icing above 6,000 feet, the northern parts there into the northeastern Gulf Coast. Obviously, west of Haida Gwaii, it's quite a bit higher, around and above 12,000 feet, just because the warmer air aloft. And then back here to the west with this next low, skirting the Aleutian chain and there southward above 6,000 feet, there may be some moderate icing along areas of the lower Bering Sea and the Aleutian chain. Here is the upper level wind field. We have a jet core of 120 to 140 knots south of the Aleutians. We can see the low circulation in the upper levels with the current system that will be lifting northeastward, but otherwise, generally winds are not that strong aloft over the mainland. At 9,000 feet, 700 millibars, we continue to see the main train of mid-level winds associated with the lower portion of the jet stream out across the North Pacific south of the Aleutians, and then coming back up in to British Columbia, Haida Gwaii, where winds aloft are 50, 60 knots. Lighter winds here out over the mainland and out over the Gulf, especially the northwestern Gulf. And then at 3,000 feet for Saturday, we find the belt of highest winds south of Haida Gwaii back into the North Pacific, anywhere from around 40 to 55 knots. And then behind me, as I turn around here, here's the low circulation that's going to be riding along and just south of the Aleutian chain. There's a pocket of 35 to 50 knot southeast to easterly winds north of that in the lower Bering, and then strongest winds south of the low center, 50 to as high as 60, 65 knots. And of course, you're going to find your greatest threat for turbulence out there in the western portion of the Aleutians. Considerable moderate turbulence, surface to 3,000 feet during the day Saturday, and then out here toward the Panhandle, as that low weakens, there's still going to be some potential for some moderate turbulence over areas of the central southern Panhandle, surface to 6,000 feet.